Join me today as we make this very nautical tray for your home or as a gift. Now, let's dive in. Welcome, Sea Rockers. Today's ingredients list is going to include a tray. I got mine from Hobby Lobby. Some wood shapes. I'm using these teardrops from Hobby Lobby as well. Get them anywhere. Some jewelry wire for our fishtails. And some fabric. We're going to decoupage this onto our little wood pieces. And some gray paint. And we'll also be using some resin. First thing we're going to do is get a general layout of how you want to put your fish on the tray. And so I'm just going to do that here, and I'm going to speed it up so it's not so painstakingly slow. And as you do it, just make sure and you leave a little room for your fishtails, because you're going to want to fit those in there as well. And I decided to make one little fish going the other way. All right, so our layout is here. We've got the fish tails. We made room for those, kind of checking on those, see how we like it. Later in the video, I'll show you how I make the little fish tail for our little opposite going guy. Now I wanted to make some shadow for them to give a little dimension. So I'm just marking my beginning and ending point of where my shadow will be on the bottom side. So I'm just going from the pointy end to the middle of the bulbous end of the teardrop. And you'll just do that for every fish. Okay, so now you can see why I did that. So we have a beginning and ending point for our shadow. So you're just going to take your gray paint or whatever paint you're using for your shadow. I chose gray. And then you're just going to paint from one end to the other end. Don't get too carried away or you'll have to correct yourself with some white paint. In this case, I did have to go through and make a few little corrections, and thank goodness the whites matched. If you have some other color tray, you may not be that lucky. Well, our gray paint is dry, and you can see how it'll look with the wood pieces. Gives a nice little shadow. And now it's time to decorate, paint whatever you're going to do to the top piece of your fish if you're doing it just like mine. So I'm actually going to take some white paint and pre-paint the tops because the fabric that I'm going to use has a white background, and with decoupage, it will show through. And what I mean by it will show through, the wood, that kind of off-white yellowy color, will show through the white background of your fabric. So just give the tops and the sides a good coat of paint, and that way you've got yourself covered. Once our pieces are dry, we're ready for the next step, which is some decoupaging. I actually love doing this. This is a product called Mod Podge. You're probably familiar with it. And we're going to use that on our white pieces that we just painted. They're dry. And you're going to put a generous coating on top. See what I'm saying about painting them white with the white background? Now they'll appear white. Believe me, I did a test run. And then put it upside down. Now, keep in mind if you have a directional fabric, how it's going to turn out on the other side. So don't go through this and end up with your pattern backwards. Then just go through and do it all. Once that coat of decoupage is dry, then it's time to cut them out. Get some nice sharp scissors, and you're going to cut right around the edge. Now, be really careful, because if you take a chinger out of the fabric, it will show on the other side. So you have to be really careful and purposeful as you cut around your shape. Once you have all your shapes cut out, then you're going to decoupage the edges. Now, I did this separately because I wanted to make sure I got 2 coats on the edges. So I went through, did the edges first. I know, I'm anal, what can I say? And got those sealed up real good. So I did the edges first, and then we're going to go over the top of the pieces, because you don't want our next step, which is resin, to ruin the fabric. So get your edges done twice and the top done at least once, a nice generous coat. Now we are ready for some resin. First thing you want to do, besides prepping your area, is making sure your project is level. And I pre-did this, so watch. I had to adjust things for my board. My table is level, but the board was not, or the tray. So I had to make adjustments for that. Now the resin I like to use is from Moss Epoxies. For this project, we'll be using their tabletop resin. They also have a really nice one called Art Pro. And this system is a 1-to-1 ratio, and it's very easy to use and very beginner friendly. So whatever brand of resin you're using, just make sure you follow the manufacturer's instructions. Okay, our resin is ready. I'm going to add some mica powder. I'm using this pearl. On this project, we're going to put in 2 layers of resin. So this is going to go in the first layer, which is on the bottom. And then on top of that, we'll add the fish in the second part. So you're just going to mix it up. This mica powder is so pretty in the end, so shimmery. We've mixed, we've leveled, and now we're ready to pour. After we pour, then we're going to spread it out. Simple as that. Make sure you're careful as you go to the edges so you don't splash it up on the edges. And just make everything as even as possible. This particular brand is self-leveling, so it will level itself out eventually, but it has to have enough volume in there of the product to do that. So spread it out. You're going to let your resin sit for a few minutes so those bubbles can rise to the top. And once that has happened, then you're going to take a butane torch. And this, please be very careful when you're using this indoors. And you're going to torch, that's what it's called, your resin. Now, you have to be very careful so you don't scorch your resin. So you're constantly moving, and you don't want to do it very long. Just kind of zap the bubbles, go back and forth, don't stay in one spot. And while you're doing that, keep an eye out for little hairs and dust and things that get caught in there. And there's a little hair, and I've got to go grab it. Got to get the life raft and pull it out. Once you're confident your bubbles are out, you're going to want to cover your piece. So for that 24 hours, you don't have dust and cat hair, dog hair, whatever flying around getting caught up in it. While the resin is curing, I'm going to work on the second part of the fish and decoupage them with some Mod Podge, the navy blue fabric. But first, I'm going to paint them blue as well. Hold on. Why on earth am I going to paint them blue when I have the fabric that's blue, and then I'm going to put the blue fabric on? Nah, I'm just going to paint. Okay, blue paint is dry. Our decoupage pieces are dry, and now I'm just going to put them together. It's been 24 hours and our resin is hard, but it's not cured. So I see that I've got some bubbles that came up overnight, and I'm just going to zap those with a little bit of sandpaper. Clean it off with some alcohol, and then I'm ready for my next step. Our resin is dry, so are our fish, and now we're going to glue them down. Make sure when you glue them, you leave some of your shadows showing. You don't want to cover it up completely. The tools for our tails is just some jewelry wire. I believe it's about 18-20 gauge. And some pliers you can find in the jewelry department. And here's the comedy section of our show today, where you get to witness me wrestling jewelry wire. And spoiler alert, it wins. Our fish are glued down, and now we're going to mix up the next batch of our resin to pour on top. Now's the fun part, pouring the resin. I started by pouring around the fish, and then I went over the top. Spread it around, and you also want to get the bubbles out after you let it sit a little bit. Make sure everything is covered that you want covered. And then I use a heat gun in this step. Before I cover it, I'll take the torch to it. But right now, I'm just using the heat gun. Now we get to add those cutie patootie fish tails that we made with the jewelry wire. And lastly, we're going to torch and cover it up for the night. And now the big reveal. Let's see. Oh, it looks so pretty. Oh my gosh, I love it. And no bubbles. Oh, I'm so excited. Wait till you see this outside. Oh, I can't wait to show you. And here it is outside. Hey, thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I hope you might try this project yourself, or hopefully you were just inspired or entertained. I invite you to join the Sea Rocker family. Please subscribe, like, and share with all your salty friends. Of course, it helps me create more content. And don't forget to follow me on my other social media platforms. So thanks for watching, and till next time, go beach or go home.